In one of the darkest places in human history, a man was forced to mark others with a number. Numbers that stripped them of their names. Numbers that meant survival or death. This is not fiction. This is the true story of the tattooist of Auschwitz. Lale Sokolov, a Slovak Jew, was deported to Auschwitz in 1942. But instead of being executed, he was given a task that would haunt him for the rest of his life: to tattoo the arms of fellow prisoners. But what started as a survival strategy turned into something much more: a forbidden love, a secret resistance, and a life forever marked by guilt, memory, and an unshakable sense of responsibility. This is a story of courage in unimaginable darkness, of love blooming in a place designed to kill hope, of how humanity can flicker even in hell. Lale Sokolov was born Ludwig Eisenberg in 1916 in Konopachi, a small industrial town in Slovakia. His father was a businessman, his mother a homemaker, and they raised him to be ambitious, polite, and optimistic. He grew up in a multicultural environment, speaking Slovak, Hungarian, German, and later Russian and French. By his 20s, he had a knack for charming people, a skill that would one day save his life. The political climate around him was changing. In 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Czechoslovakia, and anti-Jewish laws quickly followed. Jewish families lost businesses, rights, and dignity. By 1942, young Jewish men were being recruited for what the authorities called labor duty. In reality, they were being deported to concentration camps. When Lale heard that married men and fathers were being taken away, he made a choice. He volunteered to go, hoping his absence would spare his family. He didn't know he was stepping into the gates of hell. In April 1942, Lale was shoved into a cattle car with hundreds of others. The space was so tight, people could barely breathe. The air was thick with sweat and fear. There was no food, no water, and nowhere to sit. The journey lasted days. Some never made it to the end. When the train finally screeched to a halt, the heavy doors slid open. Lale saw armed SS guards, snarling dogs, and looming watchtowers. Beyond the barbed wire, chimneys pumped black smoke into the sky. He had arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau. New arrivals were lining up and ordered to strip. Their hair was shaved, their clothes taken, and their names replaced with numbers. From that moment, Lale was no longer Ludwig Eisenberg. He was 32407. For most, this was the beginning of a slow death through hard labor, disease, and starvation. But for Lale, fate was about to take a different turn. Just days after arriving, Lale collapsed from fever and exhaustion. He was taken to the camp infirmary, a place feared by prisoners because patients rarely left alive. Miraculously, Lale recovered. While there, he met Pepin, a French political prisoner who served as the camp's tattooist. The tetover's job was to ink identification numbers into the arms of new arrivals. It was brutal work, but it came with small privileges: a private room, extra rations, and the ability to move around the camp. Pepin noticed Lale's intelligence, steady hands, and calm under pressure. He offered to train him as an assistant. Lale hesitated. The thought of marking people, of becoming part of the Nazi machinery, sickened him. But in Auschwitz, refusal was not an option. Survival meant compromise. When Pepin suddenly disappeared, Lale was ordered to take his place. At just 26 years old, he became the tattooist of Auschwitz. Every day, trains pulled in, bringing human cargo from across Nazi-occupied Europe. Men, women, children, the elderly, some were sent directly to the gas chambers. Others were registered as prisoners, their arms outstretched for the tattooist. Lale stood there with his needle, carving numbers into trembling flesh. The process was quick but painful. The skin reddened, blood mixed with greenish-blue ink. He tried to be gentle, whispering words of comfort in whatever language he could manage. But no matter how kind his touch, the meaning was the same. You are now property. You are a number. This work tore at his soul, yet it also gave him rare privileges: better food, warmer clothes, and freedom to move between Birkenau and Auschwitz. With these came opportunities, and dangerous possibilities. In July 1942, a young woman stepped forward to be tattooed. She had striking eyes, even in the filth of the camp. Her arm trembled as Lale inscribed her number 34902. Her name was Gita Furman. In that brief moment, something shifted in him. A spark of humanity, a connection. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Through careful networking, Lale found out where Gita was housed. He arranged for brief meetings, moments stolen in the shadows of barracks. They passed letters hidden in laundry, whispered promises through fences. In a place designed to destroy love, they found it anyway. And Lale made her a vow. If we survive, I'll find you. I'll marry you. Lale's position gave him access to places and people most prisoners never saw. He began smuggling messages, food and medicine. Using diamonds and currency taken from the belongings of murdered Jews, he bribed guards and traded with civilian workers. These acts were deadly risky. If caught, he would be shot on the spot. But Lale saw them as his way to fight back, to give others a slightly better chance to survive. Some days, he helped a starving prisoner get extra bread. Other days he arranged for life-saving penicillin to reach the infirmary. He was living on a knife's edge, balancing between survival and resistance. And all the while, he kept seeing Gita whenever he could. She became his reason to keep going. By late 1944, the war was turning against Germany. The Red Army was advancing toward Poland. The SS began evacuating Auschwitz, sending tens of thousands on death marches toward other camps. Gita was among those forced to march. Lale was left behind, his position no longer offering protection. On January 27, 1945, the Soviet army liberated Auschwitz. Lale walked out of the gates, free but broken and completely alone. His promise to Gita burned in his mind. He had no idea where she was, or if she had survived, but he swore he would find her. The months after liberation were chaos. Europe was a sea of refugees, orphaned children, and displaced survivors. Lale registered with the Red Cross, searched train stations, and asked in every camp he visited. Weeks turned into months. Then, in Bratislava, he saw her. Gita, thinner, frailer, but alive. Their reunion was tearful, almost unreal. Two people who had met in hell, now holding each other in the light of freedom. They married soon after, determined never to be separated again. Lale and Gita emigrated to Australia, building a quiet life together. They opened a business, raised a son, and rarely spoke of the past. For over 50 years, Lale kept his role as the tattooist a secret. He feared people would see him as a collaborator. He feared they would not understand the impossible choices he faced. But Gita knew his heart. She told him, "You saved lives. You gave people hope." It was only after her death in 2003 that Lale decided to tell his story. Not to clear his name, but to honor the people behind every number he inked. Lale spent years sharing his memories with author Heather Morris. In 2018, her novel The Tattooist of Auschwitz brought his story to millions. The book became a bestseller, translated into dozens of languages. But with fame came controversy. Historians questioned the accuracy of some events. Some survivors criticized the romantic elements. Others defended Lale, saying he had done what he could in an impossible situation. Lale never claimed to be a hero. He said only, "I remember the faces, the voices, the pain. That is what I will carry to my grave." He died in 2006. His story finally told. Lale Sokolov tattooed more than 18,000 prisoners in Auschwitz. Each number was a scar, a wound, a silent testimony. And yet behind each number he saw a person. He remembered their names, their faces, their fear. The story of the tattooist of Auschwitz is not one of triumph, but of survival, of small acts of kindness in a world built on cruelty, of love that endured when everything else was stripped away. It is a reminder that history is not just made of dates and numbers, it's made of people and the choices they make when the world collapses around them. And perhaps that is Lale's greatest legacy. Not the ink he left on arms, but the humanity he refused to surrender. You've been watching The Gallows Archive. Subscribe for more historical stories that reveal both the darkness and resilience of the human spirit.